Welcome to another episode of Nintendo News Daily. I'm your host, N64 Josh, and I'm excited about today. I did a fun video earlier today. If you missed it, make sure to go and check it out. It's all about Nintendo Switch 2 and the possible accessories. Upon making the thumbnail, I discovered some interesting things that we're going to talk about a little bit later. So it'll kind of be like a little um, uh, almost a little behind the scenes or kind of a part two, if you will, because that is also going to be our main topic that I discuss with the live chat as people are rolling in here. And so we got some Nintendo news bites. Nothing major right now. Nothing major. I will tease that tomorrow there's been a lot of chatter online about the February Direct. I've even seen dates thrown around that it's possibly happening February 4th, like real early in the month. And so, we're gonna talk about our predictions for that, and it should be a fun Friday show for sure. But you know what time it is? It's time to hit the intro. All right. Well, here we go. And we're just going to jump right into the news as people are rolling in here. I see we got some people hanging out. Welcome on in, you guys. Thank you again. We're doing this live every day, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. So trying to hit like maybe lunchtime, maybe a break, who knows. And if you can swing in for the live show, we'd love to have you. I'm also working on getting an evening show back into the mix, something similar to how MPC used to be at like 7:30 once a week. So that is in the works as well, just so you guys know. So because I've been seeing comments from some people saying I can't make the afternoon show, but I wanna be there live. So I want to try to slip one more live show into the mix. So with that, we're at nintendolife.com, and this game just makes me laugh. All right. It's the headline reads, "Sorry Romantics, bonkers dating sim Date Everything has been delayed until June." So I know if you were very excited to date everything, including a toaster, it looks like there's a chicken back there. Let's read the full the full presser here from Team 17. It says, "To our fellow Daviators, that's a fun word to say, Daviators. Since we last updated you on development, we've been extremely hard at work finishing work on Date Everything. And at this point, I can confidently say that we have reached the point where the game is complete to a standard that we feel reached our goals with no compromise in our bonkers artistic vision. However, I was too confident that we could properly test all the wild amount of content um, and pathing that exists in this massive game. And unfortunately, we ran out of time on our current and yet so appropriate release date of February 14th, 2025. It says our bug list is finally starting to dwindle down as QA gets through the labyrinth story pathing. But to submit our game in the state with so many outstanding glitches would be doing you a disservice. We have our final release date set for June 2025. And while it isn't quite as sexy a date as Valentine's Day, we hope you can bring new sexiness to June evermore. And yes, you actually can date the glitches. Their name is Damon, and I'm currently in a love-hate relationship with them. So there you go. We got some people in the chat here. CC, what is going on? Cryptic, welcome. I know Cryptic is super bummed out about Date Everything. It was his most anticipated game for 2025. You're gonna have to wait a little longer. I know he's been so excited about this that he had I think he was up to 16 sticky notes left where he pulls one off every day as the countdown begins towards Date Everything. You're going to have to add a few more sticky notes, my friend. I'm really sorry. And yeah, that Date Everything was one of those wild videos. Like we talked about it quite a bit. Hey, Wheatbread says, "I can't wait to date my existential dread." So, I mean, you got to wait a little longer. You got to wait a little longer. You don't just till June. Just till June, then you can finally do it. So, who knows? The like honestly, when I saw this game, I'm like, there's no way this is for me. But even reading that and just kind of seeing like hearing from somebody on the team like that it almost changes things a little bit. Like it's piqued my interest a little bit more. I'll say that. It seems really, really goofy though. Really, really goofy. Cryptic says completely bummed. 2025 starting out rough. I need my digital date life fix. I know. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. We can have some more bros nights in COD if you need. Just let me know. Let me know. Next up, TMNT Splintered Fates upcoming DLC sees Casey Jones join the Hades like action. And so the article reads, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate getting DLC. We knew this already, of course, but today Super Evil Megacorp has revealed our first proper look at it, introducing the roguelike's newest playable character, Casey Jones. The Casey Jones and Junkyard Jam DLC is set to land on Switch on the 5th of February, bringing with it the Turtles hockey mask wearing pal, a new stage, and a fresh wave of enemies to take out along the way. Alongside the usual bat swinging close combat, Casey packs a range attack for taking down foes from afar. We'd have to imagine it that the likes of Raph or Leo's slashing attacks can deal more damage, but throwing some range into the mix could be a fun way to mix up the rogue-like runs, particularly in co-op. The Junkyard Jam DLC will see you facing off against the Punk Frogs, which that's super cool. Like because they were always my favorite as a kid. Another lineup of mutant amphibians that date back to the 1987 TMNT animated series, with Genghis, Attilia, Napoleon, and Rasputin being joined by a new face, looks like Gigi, for this entry. You can also have a peek at Casey and the Turtles battling their foggy foes in the following screenshots. And so we can see that I need to jump into this game, honestly. Like, everybody seems to love Hades. I've heard this game talked about, and I'm a huge Turtles fan. It's just that right now I'm trying to make time for games, and so it's like I don't really want to pull the trigger on anything new when I'm really, really digging into the backlog. And I'll be real with you guys, I'm not necessarily stuck in Xenoblade Chronicles right now, but I am at a point where I'm like, I need to level up like 2 more times. So it's just a little bit of grinding, but I'm like, I really want to progress, but I'm too stubborn to put it in casual mode. So that's on me. Cryptic said, I heard this game is fun. Didn't it start on mobile, getting a lot of recognition when it comes to Switch, which is awesome? It did, yes. From my understanding, I want to say Apple Arcade maybe is where it kicked off, if I remember correctly. So, but it was getting a lot of love, especially with the people comparing it to the likes of Hades, which I know is very well loved. Next up, this is kind of interesting, and I'm curious if we're going to find out any information on why. Oh, it looks like right in the first sentence we can figure out why. But the headline reads from Nintendo Life here: Japan's Switch eShop will soon no longer accept overseas payment methods. So that means, like some of us, not me, but I know a lot of people have signed up for a Japanese account, and they take advantage of the Nintendo Switch Online on both accounts. In some cases, people ordered like the Famicom controllers because they could, right? They could get as well as the NES. It's just kind of a cool piece to have in your collection. It's also fitting because we're going to be talking about accessories today, and but now it's looking like this may not be an option anymore. So it says Nintendo's announced that the Japanese Switch eShop will soon no longer accept overseas credit cards or PayPal accounts as valid payment methods. As reported by VGC, the change will come into effect on the 25th of March, 2025, with Nintendo citing fraudulent use as the main contributing factor behind the decision. It has not elaborated beyond this, but it's well known at this point that many overseas Switch owners like to utilize the Japanese eShop for games that either haven't been available elsewhere or perhaps might be cheaper than their regional equivalent. Yeah. So it's interesting to see that happen. Back in track a little bit here. Blue Barks says he has Turtles on Steam and loves it. And Cryptic says, or like the collector's editions that the US does not get sometimes. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's kind of a bummer if you were spending a lot of money on the eShop in the Japanese eShop. I would assume the way around this, probably buy Japanese eShop cards off of like Play Asia, I think. And I've done this in the past where you can buy specific to that region. So you should still be able to load up your account and get the games. You're just not going to be able to do it via credit cards or PayPal at this point. So that should be a bit of a workaround for you if it is something that you find yourself doing often. Surprise! Capcom's first showcase of 2025 is airing next week, and it says join us for a 20-minute Capcom spotlight. I'm just going to take a look at the quote here. It says, bringing you back-to-back info all about all that's coming from Capcom. First, get the scoop on upcoming games from Capcom Spotlight. Then tune into the Monster Hunter Wilds showcase for all the latest info. Both events will have subtitles available in 13 languages. So this is happening February 4th. Everybody's kind of assuming that we're not going to hear much from any kind of third parties about Switch 2 games until after April 2nd. Now, in this case, and even like Xbox case, right? Like Xbox had a showcase. Everybody was like, okay. And especially me, I was thinking if Nintendo gets their direct out, then that will leave opportunity or the announcement out for the Switch. That'll give opportunity for us to then see Switch 2 games at Xbox. We didn't. Well, we may have, but there was no Switch 2 logo on any of the games. Now you got Capcom doing a spotlight, and my gut feeling is we won't see anything with the Switch 2 logo. That being said, come April 2nd, Nintendo can pack all of these third parties into that event, similar to what they did with the Switch 1, right? So if you guys think back 8 years ago when they announced Switch 1, we saw the likes of Skyrim. It was FIFA at that time. Right, there was what we saw, Steep, if you guys remember, that ended up getting canceled. That never ended up making it to the Switch like we thought it would. But there were like third-party support was there, and it wasn't even close to what it's going to be now. So my gut feeling is that although Monster Hunter Wilds may not have the Switch 2 logo right now, I think there's a very real possibility that we will see that game in the April 2nd direct. And maybe we don't see a lot of info on it, but I think we're going to see some. I think we're going to see some of those Xbox games. If Master Chief Collection is a real, is really coming to Switch 2, I think we'll probably see it there, especially if it's a launch title. And I mean, Nintendo's they're gonna utilize these companies for launch games as well. Like we can only assume Mario Kart's going to be there. Maybe Metroid Prime is that cross gen. But I've also heard people argue if you've got Metroid Prime as a first person shooter, and then you've also got the Master Chief Collection, is it a little bit of a conflict of interest? So there's so many unknowns, and like April 2nd cannot get here fast enough. We all want more info about Switch 2. That is for sure. So, all right. Well, Lastly, we're just going to take a quick look at the download for the 30th of January, and the picture that we're seeing on My Nintendo News is the Star Wars prequel pack, which has got Republic Commando, Bounty Hunter, Pod Racer, and Jedi Power Battles. Okay, and Cryptic has a good question. Cryptic's asking, do you think the April Direct is every game, third party and first party, or just focusing on launch games? I think to have the most impact, they want to showcase both. I think like it's one thing for Nintendo to come out and show us a 3D Mario, a a Zelda remake, if you will, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker. But I think to kind of like really wow the audience, they're gonna want to show some of these games that third parties are doing, that like, and make sure it says like, like captured on Switch 2, right? Like to where we can see what Master Chief Collection looks like on Switch 2. We could see what Elden Ring looks like on Switch 2. And I think that's going to have much more of an impact of the decisions that people are going to be making, going, oh, I'm definitely picking up Elden Ring on my Switch if it looks like this and runs like this, right? And I think that kind of stuff will be important. That being said, you got April, May, and then June. We can probably assume that there may be another direct around that time. I don't know. It'd be really close together, especially if we have February, April, and June. But I mean, June is usually the big announcement time as well, although we're coming off of a big announcement in April. So it's, again, so many things up in the air. I would say if they're light on third parties, it's because we're going to see something again in June. And if they're real heavy on third parties, and this feels like more like a June Direct, which is very possible in April, that we may not see much for for a June Direct. It's we're just kind of in somewhat uncharted territory right now. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think they would have the best impact if they do get third-party games in the mix right now. So taking a look at a few other games coming out, you got Hello Kitty Island Adventure is out. Phantom Brave, The Lost Hero. Super Nintendo Switch Online has had, Fatal Fury 2 for Ninja Boy. And I'm going to go with like Suit Hakun, I think is how you say it. I may have said it completely wrong, but so there's 3 new games there if you haven't updated. You can pre-order for which is available. You can pre-order Tomb Raider Remastered, which launches on February 14th, which is also Lara Croft's birthday. So that's kind of funny. And then they do have game trials going on right now with Moving Out 2 and Dead Cells. So you can try those and get platinum points for trying those out. And lastly, Nintendo Music was recently updated, which we talked about with Pokemon Legends Arceus. And so I want to see, and they do have their Supercharge sale going on, which I know we've talked about. Like there's a lot of great deals right now, especially some first party stuff. All the sports titles are like 30% off. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to go pick those up, because it is really good deals. And then there's just a massive list. You guys, like I said, the Star Wars prequel is there. And I mean, the amount of like titles that just, and I mean, I don't know who's buying some of these things. Big Adventures Trip to Europe 7 Collector's Edition. I've never heard of this. Car Wash Tycoon Business Simulator. Like, colorizing animals, Connect the Circuit 1000. It just seems like there's so much that we have to like navigate through to try to get to the actual games on the eShop. And so hopefully hopefully there's big changes coming with Switch 2, because a lot of these games are going to be moving forward. But I mean, we're looking like within the next week, like this is probably, you know, I'm not going to go through and count each one, but I mean, it's probably pushing 40 games, you know, and a lot of them are probably like relatively cheap, and it's just like, it's crazy. Cryptic says, do another choose your stream game, and we will see who will be buying these games. Yeah, exactly. I'll end up playing Car Wash Tycoon Business Simulator, like, you know, loosen screws, puzzles. It, like that right there. I mean, I've seen mobile game ads for this. I've made mobile game ads for games like this. So like, that's a strange one, you know, like it's just, and I feel like we're seeing a lot of mobile games, like we always have been, right? I mean, we're talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate, like that was a mobile game. But like, I feel like there's a lot of just like cookie cutter shovelware just continually getting thrown on the eShop, and you've got to utilize like the top sellers and your search and all that kind of stuff to find stuff. And I mean, who knows? I assume it's going to be profitable for some of these companies, but it's just, I don't know. You know, the only people I can see purchasing this is Nate's kid, when Nate's not paying attention and he ends up buying Subway Sprint Girl. You know, that's or Tap Wizard 2. So, you know, and then Nate's got to go through the process of getting it refunded. So, you know, good times there, good times. But yeah, just crazy. If you are a fan of those classic Star Wars games, you know, those like Republic Commando is fantastic. I've never played Bounty Hunter, but I know it was on GameCube. Pod Racer, of course, loved. Jedi Power Battles, like I remember the box art and everything. I don't know if I played it, but one of the screenshots I saw, you can play as like Darth Maul, which I think is pretty rad, honestly. So it looked kind of like a beat 'em up style game. And again, I think it is something that people do really enjoy. But moving on to our topic now, if you saw my video earlier, and I talked about all of the like possible Nintendo Switch accessories, one of the things I found that I didn't even know existed upon doing my Google search for making the thumbnail was a Nintendo 64 mouse that went with a Mario Paint style game that was only released on the N64 disc that was only in Japan. And sure enough, it is a you know, the mouse that like the old school mouse with the ball and just two buttons which like represented A and B, but you could use this mouse for certain games, more than just the painting games. Like the mouse itself worked as like the analog stick, and then you had A and B. So I mean, potentially you could play, I would assume you could play like GoldenEye if you put one controller in your hand and then had the mouse in your other hand. Maybe, you know, I don't know. It was very interesting to me to find another mouse I didn't know existed. And I say another mouse because if you go back even further in history, you've got the Super Nintendo Mario Paint, which came with a mouse pad. It came with a mouse. Like, this is not something that is foreign to Nintendo to use mice with their games. And you know, even thinking about like all the different games that we might see use, like we've talked at length about Mario Maker, and I mentioned it in that video, but like Fire Emblem and even Splatoon and Metroid Prime 4, like, you know, I mean, shooters have often been used with a mouse and keyboard, right? Like that's very, very common. And so the question I have for you guys that are here live, and you can answer this after the fact in the comment section as well, what accessories do you think we see from Nintendo for this console? In that video, I mentioned, you know, like seeing a special edition like Mario Maker mouse and Metroid Prime and maybe maybe Fire Emblem. Like, I mean, even playing games like Xenoblade and whatnot, like would be, I mean, they work with a mouse just fine. But then you've got games like, like crawlers playing Stitch all the time, right? Like that game would probably do all right with a mouse. And all the mobile games that we just saw, most of them touchscreen. I think games that are touchscreen would do great with a mouse. I was recently creating levels in Mario Maker. I think I mentioned it yesterday. And I mean, they did their absolute best with like the way they set it up to run on with a controller. But a stylus or a mouse is superior. Like there's no question there. It's just more accurate. It's going to be faster, and ultimately ideal. So, within the video, I also got a little bit crazy too. I also got a bit crazy. Nintendo Prime says, "Just give me a new Power Glove." I mean, would it need the two connectors for the side of our TV? It would be like not only the Wii, but needing, but you remember setting that thing up. Like I remember my friend let me borrow it, and did not give me the sensors, which I mean it didn't work anyway. Let's be real. But I was trying to do Mike Tyson's Punch Out. It was not. It just it didn't work. It didn't work. But yeah, a new Power Glove. Let's go. Let's. I'm here for it. The Wizard 2. Let's make it a thing. A whole marketing campaign for Nintendo. But I mean, I talked about like more than just like getting a mouse, the potential for Nintendo Switch Online to expand to GameCube and also to Wii games, right? And then getting new wireless GameCube controller and Wii remotes and nunchuck. And I mean, even in the video, like I found, well, actually it's funny, Nintendo Prime's here. I was looking for the Wii announcement video, and his video is number one when you search for Wii announcement videos. So I thought that was awesome. I basically found the Wii trailer, right? And it's showcasing, it's got the corniest thing ever, you guys. It has the Metroid roll where the guy is like taking cover behind his couch and then rolling out from behind while he's aiming at the screen. Like so corny, right? Cryptic says, I would love a wireless GameCube controller that doesn't require the adapter. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And first party, right? And to have a first party one, like I would love that. And fingers crossed that it happens. But there's so many of those Wii games that were like, they showed tennis and golf and the WarioWare stuff, which is just kind of forgot about that stuff. Mario Galaxy, Legend of Zelda, right? Like, and again, like I don't know that a lot of us loved playing with the Wii remote and the nunchuck, but there's a generation of people that grew up with that would love to go back to it. As excited as those of us who are older, when we saw the NES remake, when we saw the Super Nintendo controller, when we saw the 64 and the Sega Genesis, like those controllers, when we saw them, that was exciting. And I want that for the younger generation that grew up with stuff like the Wii and the GameCube. Luca Gaming is here. What's going on? Welcome on in. And so that's just on the controller side of things as Nintendo Switch Online expands, right? But then kind of piggybacking on that, if it expands into the DS and the 3DS, I've heard plenty of speculation about the USB-C port on the top of the Switch 2. Maybe it is for a second screen. And I said it in that video. I'll say it again here. Like Nintendo is healthy, and when Nintendo is healthy, they can get weird, right? Like we talked about the fact that they've made not one, but two different mice for their consoles. Granted, one was only released in Japan, but like this is obviously an idea that they've not wanted to let go of, right? They've continued to do it. And if we know anything about Nintendo, we know that when they get an idea for something like the magnetic Joy-Con that they wanted to do in Switch 1, but they couldn't, and now we see it here. They hang on to stuff and they continue moving with it. So I want to throw up Cryptic's question here. It says, one thing I do not think it's enough credit is Xbox Design Labs. If Nintendo can have design labs for their controller, the money would be coming in. And they have something kind of like that in Japan. When you order a Switch, you can choose the color Joy-Con you want. But Design Lab is fantastic. Yeah. And especially if, I mean, I think we would all go crazy designing like Mario inspired controllers. And I know the Waluigi, based on the last TikTok that I put out that went viral, I know a lot of you guys like Waluigi, so I'm sure there'd be a lot of Waluigi controllers going out there as well. And yeah, I think there could be huge opportunity for something like that. That would be a lot of fun. But digging into this double screen, like this added screen, and being able to play, DS games how they were originally designed, or 3DS games. And don't get me wrong, I don't think anytime I mention any of this stuff, the last thing I ever want to see is that be the only option for it, right? Like I wouldn't want to see DS games locked behind having to buy a second screen. No, we saw it on the Wii U. There was plenty of options to be able to play DS games on one screen, whether if you're on the Switch, whether it was docked or in handheld, and plenty of options there. So I don't think, when I mention any of this stuff, I don't think for a second that it needs to be a necessity. That does lead the question, if let's say Wii games start making their way into Nintendo Switch Online, are they going to add regular controller functionality to them? And if, like some of the DS games from back in the day, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, those were all controlled strictly with the stylus. So it might have to be pointer controls. And I've done videos on this and talked about it on other podcasts that there's not a lot of coding, from my understanding, that goes into making those games run with your stick or with your D-pad. So it may not be too difficult. And we saw them do it with like Galaxy on the 3D All-Stars collection. So it can be done, but I love the options, right? I love options. I love that if I want to play it, even firing up the 64 app and playing with the 64 controller is fun. It's nostalgic. It takes me back. It gives me that dopamine hit, right? And that's kind of what we're after with all this stuff. We're just after that dopamine hit. So I'm also, when I talk about a second screen, I'm curious about what Nintendo and how they would design it, right? Like I'm almost picturing like something that might, clip into where the magnets are, then the Joy-Con can click into that, and then that becomes like a hinge that the screen can slide into, and you can fold it up. And like I want to see Nintendo, like I've said, like get weird, get creative, and just have some fun with this stuff. That lean into this stuff, like make it look like make my Switch look like an old DS, if possible, or a 3DS or whatever the SP, right? Like there's so many pieces of hardware they can pull from their history. Cryptic says, yeah, the motion felt good on all stores. Right stick can be used for a lot of things, since Nintendo didn't really incorporate it until the Wii U, unless you bought like a classic controller. Yeah, and I mean, even the Skyward Sword remake on Switch, they put a lot of the motion control on the right stick, which, it wasn't perfect, but at least it gave that option to play without having to use motion. And I'm going to be talking about motion gaming probably next week. We're going to be diving into the Mario sports titles a bit, because I believe all three of these Mario sports titles are fantastic, but I do this hole-in-one challenge daily on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and all the places. I feel like the motion in Mario Golf may be what hindered it a bit. And I mean, Aces to me felt like I don't have the same opinion as the majority. I love Aces. I think Aces felt like the evolution that we've needed from a Mario sports title for years, and they did it. But I think they made it maybe the skill gap was a little bit too much, made it a little too difficult. And I think the same is true with Strikers. They added so much to that game that it almost took it out of that arcadey feel. And then they also didn't add a few things. Anyway, we're gonna get into I want to do a whole video about it. We'll talk about it next week as on the live show as well. But it's doing motion right, and not having it affect other games. And the last thing I'll say about it is Mario Kart Wii, I felt suffered the most from having motion controls and then trying to add. It's my biggest hindrance with that game is that they had to dumb down the driving for motion control. And it's never sat right with me. It's never sat right with me. Whereas in later games, it felt like they focused on the controller and then added motion later. But yeah, like I said, the swing in Mario Golf, in particular, Super Rush, something feels off about it, and I feel like it may be it may have something to do with motion. So, well, that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you guys so much for being here live. I appreciate you. I know a lot of you guys listening to this after the fact on Spotify and Apple, and even coming back and watching these lives later on. I appreciate it all so very much. If you're not subbed here on YouTube, of course, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and we will catch you guys in the next one. Bye, everybody.